Really, if you go back in time, it's really the materials that have changed and how to produce those materials. So originally, we started off with making intake manifolds out of a cast iron type material, really heavy, and this is the material that was available at that time. It moved on to a cast aluminum, and that's been what most people think it is. Then it moved on to using resins, and what we're talking is nylon with glass-filled resins. And the processes we used, and this is mostly from the 90s, we used the lost core process, where you would make a casting and overmold it with plastic, and then you would end up getting rid of that material because it would just melt out, and then you would be left with a plastic manifold. But for the last 15 years or so, we've been making intake manifolds out of different pieces of plastic and join it together with vibration welding. And we're also looking at different technologies to weld and join these products together. So from that perspective, we've made inroads as far as the material. So if you really think of what I just mentioned, you've gone from a heavy material to a much lighter material. As well, what we've done is added different components to these manifolds, which improve the torque and horsepower with them. And what that would do is give you kind of the low-end torque and additional horsepower. And that's in some of the vehicles that you see today. If you look at one of the products we've been making for a number of years, for example, the intake manifold on the Hemi, that has low-end torque because we've actually added an active system. And this is common with some of our other suppliers or OEMs that we supply to as well.
So, now, heat has to be a real issue when you're talking about plastics and how it responds to heat. I mean, how do you get around that issue?
Okay. Well, I think that's something that's almost a misunderstanding. The fact is that it's actually better when it's made out of plastic. The first point I guess I'll make is that plastic this type of plastic is able to handle the heats that we're talking about. From a perspective of the maximum heat that we're looking at, we don't go any higher than maybe about 135, maybe 150 C, which translates, just under in the 200 and something range, high 200s. So for Fahrenheit. So first of all, the plastics can handle that. So these plastics are all capable of that. So from that perspective, it's good. The other aspect that people don't realize is that you want the air to be as cool as possible to improve your combustion process. So what you're getting is keeping an insulated product. Plastic is an insulator, whereas when I mentioned aluminum or even previously iron, those would conduct the heat. So what you want to do is keep cool air, bring it all the way to your point where you put it into your cylinders and pistons and actually do that combustion with the correct density of air.
Mahle is one of the leaders in this technology in the production of manifolds. How has business changed over the years for Mahle?
Well, I think the thing is that we've had to kind of expand not only in the technologies of the materials, have a good understanding of that. I think that's one of the facets that we've looked at. We have to look at other materials that are from a perspective of recycled materials. We have to see those options as well and see if that's an option, because we can try to utilize and try to get better costs. So that's one aspect of it. But from a technology perspective, we're always trying to implement these other items that I mentioned, like active systems that give you the better torque and horsepower at the low end or even at the high end, whatever you need, and to get a better, more effective running engine. So you're trying to do the best you can with that intake manifold to give you an overall production of your torque and horsepower and performance in general of your engine.
Are there materials being developed right now that we're not using yet? Are you looking forward to some new material, or are we pretty much where we are for a while?
We're always looking for different materials, and we've worked with all the companies that do produce the plastics. We also look at producing materials. We are producing materials where I mentioned earlier, recycled blend of materials. So we're basically taking materials that have already been produced, taken from different things like carpet, and revamping them and bringing them back in and making them actually into plastic, into true running plastic. But you have to formulate it correctly to do that type of thing.
Well, congratulations. Sounds like an interesting business you're in, and we'll keep looking forward to Mahle.
Okay, thank you very much.